Hi, my name is Sharon Delarose, and I'm here today to tell you some ghost stories. These are true stories. These happened to me, and I do have several of them. Most of you know me for my extraterrestrial stories, both personal and ancient aliens, which I've got 14 ancient alien books out now, and I'm working on number 15. But today, nope, not aliens, ghost stories. The first one, oh, this probably happened 5 or 6 years ago. I was, it was in the middle of the afternoon and I was taking a nap. I was laying on the bed. I was on my back and I felt hands on my legs, on the calves of my legs, like this, as though they were holding me into the bed. And like, oh my God, what's that? Next thing I knew, those hands had moved. They let go of my legs and they were on my arms, right where the muscles are, holding me into the bed. Now, you've got to understand this is happening so fast that I don't have any time to process. I mean, I have a million thoughts going in my head all at one time, trying to, figure out what the heck is this? Because it felt so real. I mean, it felt like hands. Then the hands let go of my arms and they wrapped around me like somebody giving me a hug, like going, now I'm laying on the bed. So it was as though somebody had their arms wrapped all the way around me, underneath me. And okay, I am really freaking out now. I mean, I'm really freaking out. And I'm wondering, is this demonic? Am I being attacked by, demons or something? And I said, well, this doesn't feel demonic. And I don't know how to quantify that, but for some reason it did not feel demonic. So my next thought was, well, extraterrestrial. I've had extraterrestrial encounters since I was a toddler, and like, well, maybe this is extraterrestrial, but it didn't feel extraterrestrial. That has a certain feeling to it. I mean, I've had so many encounters, I kind of have a good feel for when it is and when it isn't. And it's like, okay. And it felt human. This felt human. And I'm like, okay, if this is human, but there's no human there, then is this like a psychic attack? I mean, what is this? Is somebody astral traveling or and no, this is all instantaneous, just kind of all at once going in my head. And the hands they let go, and then it was over. And I'm left to just like, what just happened? Now, my husband was home, and the first thing I went is down the stairs. I told him, I said, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. Now, I've got to give that man a lot of credit. We've been together, 25 odd plus years. He had no idea, I'm sure, when he married me, the high strangeness he was getting himself into. And I've got to give him so much credit. But I told him about it, and I figured he wouldn't believe me. I figured, this is a little out there even for me. And but it's like I wanted to tell him just in case something came of it. It's like, see, I told you. And I'm, online, I'm looking at obituaries. Maybe somebody died. And I'm looking at obituaries and not finding anything. I'm kind of asking around a little bit. As far as I knew, nobody had died. It's like, what was this? What just happened? It was about 4 or 5 days later, my husband came to me and had the funniest look on his face. He said, do you remember the other day when you had that really weird experience? And I said, yeah. And he said, your friend died that day. And I'm like, really? What? This was a friend that I've known since junior high school, and she died suddenly, unexpectedly. She was at home. I don't know any more details on how she died, but I believe it was of natural causes. So maybe it was a heart attack. I don't know. But she died suddenly at home. It was totally unexpected. Nobody saw it coming. And all I could think of, because you would expect it to be, warm and friendly and fuzzy and loving and goodbye. and it was not. It was, very, very frightening. And all I can think of is that her spirit was in a panic. It happened to her so suddenly, and that maybe she was just grasping because she wasn't ready to go, or, grasping to get somebody's attention to maybe give me a message or something. And, but yeah, I mean, that happened. And I had verification a few days later that it really, was genuine and I knew where it came from. Now, the next ghost story involved my cat. I had a cat named Sunshine. I got her when she was a little bitty kitten. I think I was 19 years old when I first got her, and we traveled all over the country together. I was a bit of a gypsy, and I've been here and there, and she went with me everywhere I went, every time I moved, and she was with me for 18 years. She died at home, and I knew she was getting ready to die. And so for about, 2, 3 days before she died, I would take her outside. She couldn't, get around anymore. And I would take her outside and I was kind of held her in a towel. It was a beautiful summer day. And I would tell her, it's okay to go. It's okay to let go. And I would describe, that she'd be able to run in the valleys and the sunshine and, she'd be free. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. She'd be free to chase. This happened so long ago and it still makes me want to cry. And, I'm telling her, you can chase the butterflies and it's okay to go. So one morning, she went. Now, I'm not a morning person. I am a night owl. I've always been a night owl. It's, pulling teeth to get me up early in the morning. And, that day, I went out and I buried her and I piled it up with rocks. I buried her in the backyard. I didn't want any of the neighborhood dogs to come and dig it up, so I piled a bunch of stones on top of it. Well, the next morning, I woke up at the crack of dawn. I mean, it was literally the sun was, just coming up, it was just a bit of daylight out there. And I had this urge to go in the kitchen. And so I got up and I went in the kitchen, and there's a big window overlooking the backyard. And I looked out the window and there was a cat laying on her grave. Everybody who knows cats knows they look for comfort. They look for soft, cushy comfort, warm. This cat was laying on this pile of rocks. Cats don't do that. I had never seen the cat before, and I never saw it again after. Just that morning, laying on top of the rocks on top of her grave. If that wasn't enough, a few days later, I was sitting on the love seat. I was reading a book. And when I read a book, I'm totally in it. I'm not in this world anymore. I am in the book. I'm living the book. And I think I was reading Terry Brooks' Shannara series. For some reason, I think that's what I was reading. I loved Terry Brooks, his books. And I was so engrossed in the book. All of a sudden, I heard a cat purring up behind my head. Now, the sofa had thick cushions, cushy cushions, and I had two cats. I had Sunshine, who'd passed away, and I still had another cat, Haji. And they always laid on the cushions, on the top of the cushions. And I thought, well, that's Haji behind me, laying behind my head, and he's purring really, really loudly. And I reach around to pet him. He's not there. And I'm like, oh, I can't reach him that way. So I reach the other way. No, he's not there. So I put the book down and I turn all the way around. He's not there. Haji is not on the couch behind me. Okay, where is he? Did he jump and go someplace already? So I got up and went looking for him. He was in the bedroom, on the bed, sprawled out, sound asleep. It wasn't Haji behind my head purring. And that purring was just so beautiful and so loud. And the only interpretation I could come up with is that it was Sunshine letting me know that she was on the other side, that she was okay. Oh my God, I'm going to cry again. That she was okay, and she was, running through the green grass, chasing butterflies like I had told her, smelling the flowers and so forth. And it never happened again. It was only that one time. But from that day forward, I've always been convinced that our, beloved pets, they live on just as we do after death, and that, we will see them again. I totally believe that. The next ghost story is another one that involves a cat, only this happened when I was a little girl. I was somewhere between 5 and 10 years old, and I had come home from school one day. I went in the house, and I saw a cat. This was a short-haired black cat, and it was just walking away from me. And I'm like, "Oh, cool! There's a kitty cat. I want to go pet it." I was always a cat person. And he's like, "Oh, this is so cool." And we didn't have a cat at the time, so I thought somebody's cat had gotten in the house, and I wanted to go pet it. So I followed the cat, and it went up the stairs, and we had a landing. So it went up the stairs, around the landing, and up the rest of the stairs. And I'm right behind it. I'm following this cat. I was determined to pet the cat. So it went up the stairs, and then it went across the hall into my bedroom. I was right behind it. As soon as I got in the bedroom, I closed the door. I wanted to make sure the cat couldn't get out because I was going to go pet that cat. So the door's closed, cat can't get out, and I'm looking all over the place for the cat. There's no cat. Now, kids today, they have a lot of stuff in their room. When I grew up, we didn't have a lot of stuff in our room. I had a bed and you could, get under the bed, and I had a dresser. I did not have a closet. There just wasn't a lot there. And I looked everywhere that that cat could possibly have gone. There was no cat. We had previously had a solid black cat who, um, well, it was pregnant. The last thing I remember of the cat we had, it was pregnant, very pregnant, ready to pop, and then it vanished. And my mother told me, well, it must have ran away. So, as far as I knew, as a child, it ran away, but I think it may have uh, gone some other direction. And I don't think she did that. If my mother did anything, she would have taken it to the pound and told me it ran away. And that happened to a lot of them when I was growing up. But it was a few years later, when I saw this black cat, and I don't know if it was the ghost of the cat that we had, or a random ghost, or a hallucination. I don't know what it was. I just know that that cat looked as real as any cat. I was a little kid and I was determined to pet it. So you make of that one what you will. Now, in that same house, I totally believed that house was haunted. I grew up believing that house was, there's strange things happened in that house. And it was the same house in my same bedroom. And I was in bed one night, and there was a wall across from me. And I saw this white, ghostly figure up against the wall. It was your typical ghostly look, kind of filmy. Didn't have a lot of features. I couldn't see any facial features, and it was really tall and really thin. I could, see the shape of the head, and it went up against the wall. And I'm petrified. I'm again somewhere between 5 and 10 years old, and I'm looking at this thing on the wall, and I'm like petrified. And it started falling forward, like almost like cardboard cutout tipping over, and it was tipping over onto the bed like it was going to land on top of me. And I panicked. That was, covers go over my head, I'm hiding under the covers. And, if anything ever happened after that, I have no idea. And that particular type of thing did not happen again. That was a one-off, that particular ghostly encounter. But And, it was in that same house. It was in the same house that I encountered that black cat. Now, this one, oh my God, this is probably one of the scariest. Probably creeped me out more than when my friend died. My husband had gone to the store and I heard a door creaking. It was like a door squealing. I was upstairs and I heard a door downstairs kind of squealing open. And I thought, oh, well, Bear's home. He got home from the store. So I went downstairs. He wasn't there. And like, okay, well, I heard a door. So, that's not cool. And I looked all around, the first floor. I checked all the doors. I checked all the windows. Everything was locked up tight. We had a basement and it was a full finished basement. It had French doors leading out into the backyard. And I'm thinking, please tell me I didn't hear that door open. It's super creepy. And we had a dog, Sierra at the time, and she was on the first floor. She was laying on the floor in between the dining room table and the hutch. She never laid in that spot. But all of a sudden she's laying in that one spot and it's, kind of weird. It's like, okay, well, whatever. Dogs don't always do what you think they're going to do. And I don't know where I got the courage. Maybe because I've had so many odd experiences in my life, and I was determined to know what made that noise. So I went down in the basement. Somehow, the courage. Um, Maybe I think having dogs gives you a little more courage too, because you just sort of think if something's really, really, really bad that's going to get you, the dogs are going to let you know. And she didn't, she was just laying there. Now, usually if I go down in the basement, she'd go down with me. She'd be, oh, yeah, 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 because she'd think maybe we're going to go out the French doors out in the backyard, or I don't know. She just enjoyed going down in the basement when people went down in the basement. It was a full finished basement. It was, fun room. People would come over and we'd play cards and so forth. And sometimes people would come and stay and we had a bit, like a bedroom down there and a full bath. And she would normally just follow me down. She did not follow me down the stairs that day. She didn't want any part of that basement. And I'm like, oh God, should I really be going down the stairs? I go down, I look around, I go to every window, I go to every door, locked up tight. Nobody had come into the house, but I had heard that door squealing plain as day. So, I go back up and pretty soon, my husband comes home and, we have dinner and we're watching TV. We're sitting on the couch and I go in the kitchen to get some dessert and something flew by my head, right up close to my head, like a whoosh. It just, right up by my head. And I kind of jumped, startled. I heard the sound. I heard a whoosh. I heard what sounded like wings flapping. And I saw something out of the corner of my eye. It was um, like a dark shadow. It reminded me of all of the creepy movies where they show a demonic shadow flying through the air. I mean, it was a lot like that. And it was so quick. It just, and I could actually feel like the air, blowing my hair a little bit. And and I thought, oh my God, what was that? And of course, you go, your mind just goes everywhere. And it's like, okay, it must have been a bird. A bird must have gotten in the house, a big bird. And so now there must be a bird in the house. And I looked, searched the house, no bird, no sign of a bird. And I got to thinking, okay, well, maybe this is a spirit. Maybe somebody died and this is their manifestation, this bird-like, frightening, shadowy creature. And, first thing I always thought was that it was my bio dad because he lived to be about 84 years old, and he was sick for the last few years of it. So I always thought, oh, maybe he died. That's always the first thing, Dad, are you there? Are you okay? But it wasn't him. Nobody had, as far as I know, nobody died that day. I never found any evidence that anybody I knew died that day. But one thing did happen, and that was a few days before that. I reached out to my ancestors, kind of a prayer or whatever, reaching out to them, my on my father's side, and I asked them for help. There was an issue relating to my bio dad, and I was hoping I could get their assistance with it. And I reached out to all my ancestors, and I didn't know any of them. I did not grow up with my bio dad. Last time I saw him, I was like 2 years old, and I didn't see him again until I was like in my about 40-ish. So I did not grow up in the family. I did not know the family. Um, so I'm reaching out to these ancestors. I don't know, I don't know them. I do know that some of them were a bit shady. I do know there was a few shady ones in there, and here I am, you know, asking all of my ancestors, hey, I need your help with something. Could you, give me a hand here? And usually you would pray to, the higher power, but in this case, I really felt that, and I would usually, pray that way, but in this case, I just felt that it needed to be the ancestors, and I don't know if that was, I don't know if that's what I experienced in the kitchen that day. Um, I never came up with an explanation for that one. It was just one of those, it was creepy. I mean, it was so creepy. The experience wasn't creepy, the whoosh wasn't creepy, the air, if it had been a bird, but just that shadowy, seeing that shadow, the dark black shadow kind of, and it was just almost, almost like when you see a shooting star at the corner of your eye, and we call those doubters. Did I really see it? Did I not see it? Type of thing. The next one almost comes under the heading of a poltergeist. I was sitting at my desk. I was on the second floor, sitting at my desk, sitting at my computer, and I had I had a pretty big desk, so things weren't all cramped and crowded. I had a Macintosh Silver Tower computer. That's a big computer. The old timey, were they're about this tall and about this, almost a foot wide, and they're solid. And it was sitting on my desk. And on top of it, I had a lamp, a lead crystal lamp, kind of shaped like a I Dream of Jeannie bottle, very heavy lamp. And it was solidly sitting on the computer. And they had been there, for a few years. I mean, this wasn't something I had just put there. So I'm sitting there on the computer, and all of a sudden, the lamp tips. And the, bottom of the lamp tipped off of off of the computer about an inch. And then the lamp tipped the other way. And then it tipped back this way. And then it tipped back the other way. Okay. I'm freaking out. And I'm thinking, well, this has to be the dogs. I had two dogs. It's like maybe the dogs are jumping around. Maybe they snagged a cord, the cord, on the other side. And I get up and I go around. Not the dogs. Dogs weren't there. They weren't in the room. They didn't have anything to do with this. And to this day, I don't have an explanation for that. I think there were some other things that happened, that same evening, and I couldn't tell you what they are offhand. That went right out of my head. But that lamp, I mean, it just moved almost like somebody was trying to get my attention. Now, in that same house, and it is probably about a year before that, probably about a year before the lamp. And it was late at night. It was the middle of the night. My husband was in bed in the other room. And I heard like knocking on the window. It wasn't the window right next to me. It was, down, 5 or 6 feet over, and it was like 3 knocks. And it was always like sounded like a bird hitting the window, like, but 3 times, tee, tee, tee. And it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe a bird hit the window, something hit the window. And a few minutes later, it happened again, 3 times, like tap, tap, tap on the window, and, very, very quickly. He's like, okay, well, is somebody out there throwing stones trying to get my attention? Now, this is 3 stories up in the back of the house. There's nobody down there trying to throw stones. There's no ladder. Our house was, our backyard was fenced anyway. But, somebody would have had to have one heck of a ladder to get all the way up to the window. And, so, I mean, there would no way to look out and see anything. And a few minutes later, I heard a knocking downstairs. And it's like, okay, well, I never figured out what that was. Poltergeist, to take your pick. Um, if it hadn't been so methodical, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I could have, maybe put it off as maybe there was we were living in Georgia, the Atlanta, Georgia area, and like, well, maybe there's an earthquake in Tennessee, because that did happen one time. An earthquake in Tennessee, and our house in Georgia had made all kinds of strange noises. It actually like footsteps. It literally sounded like somebody was walking up and down the stairs, and that was very ghostly. And oh my God, that was like, oh my God, and you could hear it sounded like somebody walking across the floor, sounded like somebody walking right up to you. And that turned out to be an earthquake. I looked it up, I did the research, as I always do. And that turned out to be an earthquake in Tennessee. I don't remember where exactly, I've got it written down somewhere. That an earthquake in Tennessee whose aftershocks could be felt as far away as we were actually living in Hiram, Georgia at the time, as far away as Hiram, Georgia. So that was a ghost story that had a logical explanation. And that is pretty much the end of my personal ghost stories. Uh, I've had a lot of unusual encounters through the years. I've had a lot of extraterrestrial encounters through the years, but that pretty much covers the ones that I believe fall into the ghostly category. Now, there was something. There was an incident when I was 20 years old. I was living in an attic apartment, and this scared the diddle out of me. Oh my God, this scared me half to death. I'm in bed. It's, pitch dark. I don't know, it's midnight, 1 o'clock. It was like really, really late. And it was storming outside. I mean, thunder and lightning, and the room was pitch dark. But the lightning would flash, and all of a sudden the room would just light up for just a second, and then it would go dark again. And the lightning would flash, and the room would just light up for us, and then it would go dark again. And I'm laying there, and listening to the thunder and the rain and everything. And all of a sudden the lightning flashes, and there's somebody standing there. Somebody standing there in my bedroom, in the doorway. I screamed. I I just screamed. I mean, like, and then it went dark again. So you're there, I saw a person standing in the doorway, and like, oh my God. And the light was right next to the bed, and I turned the light on, and there really was a person standing there. I was dating a fellow, and I don't, I don't remember ever leaving my door unlocked, but I must have, and I'm sure I never gave him a key, because I wasn't allowed to have overnight visitors in this. I had an elderly couple living downstairs. It was their house, and they completely forbid any overnight visitors. And this is the middle of the night, and this is a guy I'm, dating, and I don't know how he got in, but he had walked in the pouring rain, and there he is standing in my doorway. And I'm like, you can't be here. You have to leave. You can't stay. I can't have you here. But it's pouring rain out, and he had walked. a long way. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm like 20 years old, and I couldn't send him back out in the rain. I said, oh, great. Okay, you can stay until morning. And I tried to sneak him out the next morning, but it didn't work. And I got caught, and they chewed me out. They were very unhappy. And I was like, oh my God, what do you do? You're 20. And, I didn't invite him, and there he was. But, that was a ghost story that wasn't a ghost. Just one of those super freaky incidents that scares the bediddle out of you. Um, but anyway, so sometimes ghost stories do have an explanation, like the footsteps, like that one. Oh my God, that was pretty freaky. Because it really did sound like footsteps, but it was an earthquake, aftershocks. It's amazing what kind of noises your house can make for something like that. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my little ghost stories. You, uh, you know, you either believe or you don't believe, but there it is. These did happen. They happened to me, and may all your ghosts be friendly ghosts. This is Sharon Delarose, the author of you know, fairy Nordic aliens and the fairies of Ireland, ancient aliens and the Earth agenda, and 14 total. If you're into ancient aliens and extraterrestrials and Nordic aliens and so forth, they're all fully researched and with a bibliography in the back. Every fact that I put forward is quoted. This is the person who said it, this is the book it came from, this is the person it came from, this is the source. Everything in the books is fully sourced. Fairies of Ireland, but it has the Fairies of Ireland, it's 512 pages in paperback, and the bibliography is 25 pages in the back of the book. That's how many sources went into it. So these are very, very, very deeply researched. And, you know, just maybe go out and read just one. They're available in paperback, they're available on Kindle. Most of them, well, actually, all the books in the series are available in audiobook as well. So a few of them are in Kindle Unlimited, so go have a look, go have a read. And in the meantime, may all of your ghosts be friendly ghosts, and may you sleep really, really well tonight. Good night.